Welcome, Katherine. Thank you for the opportunity to gather and meet. Well, thank you for the blessings that you've given us and the prophetic messages that you've given us. That you would help us now to understand and that you would give me ability to communicate as well in Jesus' name.
So I've written the title on board. I'm calling it Heads or Tails today, so hopefully that will become clear as we go through. And just to start off with, it's interactive. Feel free to call out or put anything in the chat if you want to. And it's a review also of a study that was done by Elder Paminda in June last year. And so let's just start off with a little point about what happened with the Midnight Cry and how did we shift some of our thinking through that. So before the Midnight Cry, or even if we make the Midnight Cry a period of time, starting in 2014, before that we had an understanding of what our prophetic message was going to be, what we thought the great test was going to be. So, and then maybe after that, we had maybe an increase of knowledge of that or a bit of a change. So would anybody like to unmute and describe what that shift was and perhaps how we might express that in different ways?
Are you talking about the shift we made? Sorry if you've made this clear, but the shift from the Midnight Cry primarily. Yeah.
Yeah. So how did we used to think about the great test before that? And then how did we understand it sort of after that? So make Midnight Cry sort of like a period of time, doesn't have to be a specific year, but just loosely, what change did we have to make in our understanding to come up to speed, I guess, what's happening in this dispensation?
So we had to, well, there's a lot of things really, I guess, but if you're talking specifically about the Great Test, then I guess we had to be led from the right to the left. We had to, well, at least to be, in that direction so that we could see the problems that were existing as conservative Christians. We also had to come to see as part of that we'd been following the wrong stream of information. So we had to recognize there were actually two streams and we were on the wrong one. And, and as time went on, we came to understand that we started to understand better the impact of dispensations on our message, and that we couldn't just see things as they were seen in Millerite time, and that things had progressed. We were now in a new dispensation, and we could see that our great test was not the Sunday law, or not a Sunday law, a literal Sunday law, or to do with the Sabbath in that way. But what we came to understand, and we also came to understand that this was true of Millerites as well, that it wasn't about a Sunday test as so much as about a human rights test, and the Sabbath was relevant in the context of understanding human rights, but not in the context of, do you go to church on a Saturday or a Sunday? So I think if I had to summarize it, I don't know if that's what you were after. But...
Okay, no, that's fine. Anybody else want to comment at all?
Obviously, sorry, I should have added, obviously our understanding of feminism came into that, because I sort of skipped that, but really that gave us our true understanding of human rights, really. When we started to get a better understanding of what feminism really was or really should be, that's what unlocked our understanding of human rights and how all human rights would be respected if we followed true feminism.
Okay, yep, no, that's good. Anyone else want to comment? What would we, earlier on, under the first angel, what would we expect the great test to be? And then now what do we expect the great test to be? Got a message in the chat. Ethos of two spectrums, values and ideologies. Yes. So, like we mentioned, there was a belief that we're looking at a Sabbath Sunday issue for the test. And then we learned that we use different words: human rights, feminism, or equality. So a bit of a change in our thinking. Now, if we looked at the 10 Commandments, what symbols do we often associate with these two approaches or these two tests?
Example. Order the 6.
Okay, order the 6. Okay. So eventually, sort of these messages developed, but it became over time summarized sort of just in a concise way, is that we had a focus on the 4 commandments, love God, but then we came to understand actually it's about the 6, or that's an important focus for us, that we need to focus on loving our neighbor, loving other human beings, and in doing so, we love God. So that's a neat way to summarize. We kind of focused on the 4 and then we shifted to the 6. But what do we also understand when we shifted to the 6? Was it like we go, okay, we believed in the 4 and now we go to the 6, or was it that we focused on the 4, but now we have to add the 6? We don't throw away the 4, we keep them both, because we know that they are actually one law, all one together. So I'll say that to think of it that way is a mistake, that we throw away Sabbath, that we don't care about the 4, that we replace it. It's more like this, that we needed to understand that we were actually neglecting an important part of the 10 Commandments. So now we understand we've got all of this together, but in shorthand, we often talk about that we've moved from the 4 to the 6. Okay, so you can't have one part of the law without the other part of the law. We understand that this should be known as counterparts. We see that theme come up in lots of different models. We'll look at that. But we know that the Bible says if you break one of the 10 Commandments, you've broken them all. So it is actually, in fact, all one thing. And it's not that easy to actually pull them apart. Oftentimes we pull things apart in order to analyze them, but actually things are not that easy to separate apart. And if you do separate it, you actually break it. A bit like that zipper that I went through with you all. If you cut that little connecting piece off, the zipper becomes useless. If we start to pull this apart and actually see them as absolutely separate and not connected, then we break that. You need basically God. God has to help us to love our neighbor, but we also don't love God properly unless we love our neighbor. So they're not completely independent of each other. So that's a little background. Next, I just want to look at different examples of similar things where we've got two things being one and the things that we can't separate. So here's my theme here. I'm just going to draw a coin. And we've got heads here and tails. So which one is the coin? Is it this one or is it this one? It's not a good question, right? Is the coin heads or is the coin tails? The question itself is fundamentally flawed. The coin is made up of, it's one thing, but it has a side to it and it has another side. So it's like two perspectives of the one thing. We could call it counterparts. But essentially, we've got two different ways to look at that. If we were to try to separate those two, say I tried to slice it through the middle, what I've now done is destroyed the coin. I now no longer have a coin. So the heads and tails has basically become useless and meaningless. Just a literal example. But other things that we can't separate. Remember, feminism is also about making connections and seeing connections. So it's good to see that connection with feminism as well. All right. So anybody want to, I'll put the 4 and the 6 here. Can anybody think of another example of something where they are actually one? Two things are one and you can't separate them.
Maybe religion and culture.
Yeah, I think so. We've had that.
Male and female?
Did you say male and female?
Yeah.
Can I make it gendered? So I'll say spouse A and spouse B.
Yeah.
Okay. And why should they not be separated? So there's a verse for that, for example. They become one flesh. They're not just two people independent of each other and sort of associated with each other, they actually become so integrated with each other, mind, body, spirit, that they become as one. So this is like what do you call it? It's a type or it's a parable that helps us as well to understand God. That essentially you try to separate them, there's a lot of damage done and it breaks. Obviously, it breaks the unit because they become a marriage or they become one thing, one flesh. If you separate them, you break that. Okay. Feel free to call out if anybody's got any more. I'll give you some more examples that I have, but if you think of any, call them out. We have the Book of Nature and Book of Inspiration. And when we talk about nature, that will include things like current events, human behaviour, also farms and animals and plants and things like that. But what we see here is that these two work together as counterparts. There'll be writings, say it's prophecy, prophetic writings. It's not enough on its own. We need to see that basically fulfilled in reality. And so we see this, if they're connected together, you can't pull them apart. Both of them tell us about God, and they work together. So got that.
Faith and Works.
Faith and Works. Thank you. Great.
How about Divinity and Humanity?
Thank you. Yes. Okay, for us to be fulfilling our purpose, these need to be working together, right? Or we see this in Christ. If we pull this apart, we destroy our understanding of redemption and the whole way salvation works as well. So these must be connected. We can't separate those, otherwise we would die, but basically we have a spiritual death. I've also got personal and political. Also, two things that must remain connected. If we pull them apart, we won't be able to resolve the problems, essentially. So the political affects the personal and the personal affects the political. They're two different perspectives of something, but essentially they do form one thing as well. And that would be our definition of radical feminism as well. So with these things, we see themes such as one flesh. They function as one. So you've got something that's actually, you know, works together as one unit. It's integrated. Basically, you destroy it if you pull it apart. Reciprocal. Bind. So lots of different synonyms. Okay, so if we separate these things, we can separate them in order to analyze. I think that's okay, but you sort of pull it apart, analyze and put it back together. You can't kind of keep them apart. Hopefully that makes sense. Sometimes we try to, oh, I've got another one, the fast brain and the slow brain. Okay, is our brain really divided into fast brain and slow brain? Can I pull them apart in my head and actually have two different brains? It's actually, we can't. So these are models that we use to examine, right, the way we think, the way we operate, but it's far more complex and integrated than we realize. They are not actually that easy to tease apart because it's just so connected, interconnected. So question then, if we start asking questions, right? Like I said with the coin, which one is the coin? I could say it with one of the other ones. I'll say, which one is the marriage or the one flesh? Is it spouse A or spouse B? And you would say to me, well, it's both. Or kind of if you say it's both, it sounds like there's still two separate things. So you might just say, no, it's actually all one thing. If I said, you know, which one is your brain? Is your brain that one or that one? You'd say to me, well, actually, I'm all of that. Like both of those make up me. It is all one thing, actually. Which one is the law of God? Well, can't really answer that question. It's all one thing. So hopefully you can see all of that. Which one is Jesus Christ? Well, you'll say to me that you can't ask that question. It's both, but it's not both as in separate. It's both, but all together. So these are just aspects that we can use to analyze. So what about the great test? Is it a prophetic test or is it a moral test? So this is where I want us to head, and this is the presentation that I wanted us to review this morning. The title of it was The Great Test, Is It Prophetic or Moral? So that was in June 2024. So we have our coin now, and we're going to say prophecy and morality. Okay, they're two different words. So that implies that they're not exactly the same, but they are actually one thing. That's what I'm kind of hoping to, and I'm hoping this is an adequate way of presenting this. It wasn't done in quite this fashion, but when I analysed it, I thought it seemed to fit in with many of the other things that we have as well, to look at it this way. Prophecy and morality, you can't separate them. So if we said, is our great test prophetic or moral? It's like saying some of those other questions I said before. I'd say, well, it's not really, you can't really ask that question. It's all one thing. It's so integrated that you can't pull them apart. You can't separate them, because if you separate them, essentially you destroy it. But it is still useful to look at the different sides of this coin and sort of do compare and contrast. So any questions yet? I'm playing this.
Catherine, can you say is this what I one is this one body with two ideology? Like it's just one entity consists of two ideology?
I don't think that's what I'm saying, but I'll think about that. I hadn't really brought ideology as a subject into this study. It's just purely a review, but I don't think so. Let's revisit that at the end, but I don't think so. Okay, morality. So this was a class where it was quite interactive. So we had a lot of people discussing. Maybe we've all seen it. Maybe some of us have seen it. I remember when I watched it, it was I don't know if it was a confusing meeting, but it sort of, there was just a lot of backwards and forwards, and I came away thinking, okay, well, are they the same or not? Because people were saying they were the same thing. And I'm thinking, okay, prophecy and morality are the same thing. It seems to I think it's doing funny things to my brain because I don't really know that I get that. So part also stems from how people define morality. So in the group, there was, from what I observed, two different ways of defining morality. I didn't see a third way. Some people were defining morality in one way, and some people were defining morality in a different way. And in order to analyze this question, you need to know what the definitions of the terms are. So I'll give you an illustration of how I understood the two different definitions were. One of the definitions was, I'll put it this, I'll draw two people. It's basically people were going, okay, morality is something I feel about right and wrong. So we know it's right and wrong. I think everybody agrees with that. So we'll just say good and bad. I think everybody agreed it's got to do with understanding what's good and what's bad. But say here's two people. They might be somebody in the movement or somebody who's not in the movement, or somebody sitting next to you in class. But they have a sensation of what is good, and they have a feeling about what is bad. And this is the definition of morality. So essentially what they're saying is it's something like my conscience. I have a feeling. I have a sense, an inner sense of right and wrong. I've got to listen to that. I have an opinion. What I think is.
Excuse me, Catherine.
Yes.
Could you go over those two bits of green writing? I can't read them. I don't know if anyone else is having trouble. It's just very fuzzy,
Too
like
pale?
it could write. Yeah, I couldn't read them.
I'll go blue and see if that
Sorry.
helps then. That's okay. It's good that you tell me. Is that better?
Yes, definitely. That's definitely way better. Thank you. That makes
Okay,
sense
chuck the
now.
green
Thanks.
floor. All right. No, thanks for calling that out. All right. So some people think that when you say morality, this is what we're talking about. Like in me, I have a feeling or a sense of what is right and wrong, and I ought to follow that. Essentially, this person would have then a rule book, and this person has a rule book, and they actually might be different rule books, right? And then logically from that, because we know from methodology, once you've got a rule established, then when you change the scale, it's the same rule applies. So we're not inconsistent when we go from a person to a group to, say, a nation. Implication of that then is, and people were saying this, maybe then if we went for a group, we'd say our movement has what we think. So here's the movement. And we have what we think is right and wrong, and people, let's just say in the world, they have their morality. So we have our morality, they have their morality. So that'd be like, we think, say, feminism is good and maybe others don't, or whatever we want to put here. Now, it becomes a little bit problematic. So I'll write scale there. That's the implication. So in a sense, we get this sort of thing that people are a law unto themselves. And if that's the definition of morality, then we'll probably get stuck there in our conversation. The other model that other people were disagreeing, it looked a bit like this, and I hope I'm representing people properly. It's just my interpretation anyway. The other model for what morality is was different. You have the rule book here. And you've got two people looking at that rule book. Okay. So good and bad is defined kind of out here. So that being the definition of morality, if you go with that, then what it's actually not feelings. It's not opinions. It's not a sensation. It becomes an external standard. And it's rules-based. Okay, so it's not feelings-based. Now it's rules-based. And also, when there's a common set of rules, it allows you to judge others. So I'll put an asterisk next to judge others, because when we judge others, there's caveats with that. Okay, it's not that straightforward to judge others, but if you want to judge others' behavior and say abusing women or children or being racist is wrong, when people do this, they're looking at morality this way, as that there is an objective law out there somewhere that everyone is meant to follow. So if that's the case, then I am now able to look at you and compare you against that standard. So with scale, so the judging others bit, it was mentioned a little bit, not quite in that way, but I think sometimes I mix up my own thinking into my studies sometimes. When we look at scale, then we've got everyone. Everyone has to follow the same good and bad. And that maybe people are over here. It's not that they disagree with this, that everyone should follow this, but it's defining what morality is the thing. So if this is the definition of morality, then basically we can hold other people or other nations to account for not following the rules. Now, interestingly, you don't need to be a Christian. Just as a little anecdotal story, I used to interact with atheists and online, and I thought I would be there to represent people of faith, I guess, and try to discuss them with them, whether God exists. But something that they almost always did as atheists was to say they don't like Christians or, in fact, other religions at all, because those religions are manipulating people or abusive of people or, genocide or whatever the argument was. They were angry about the injustices. And in doing that, they were appealing to some kind of a standard that's out there that everyone should be following, and saying, certain Christians are bad because they don't behave righteously, essentially, that they don't even live up to their own, basically practice what they preach and things like that. So one of the arguments that exists in apologetics, there's different ways that people argue with atheists or argue for the existence of God, but arguing based on, I think it's called the argument based on morality, if you were to Google it. It essentially says to those people, when either there's something out there that defines right and wrong. So if there's no God, what is that and where do you get that from? Because if everybody was just sort of like randomly created, what's the subjective rules that you're talking about? Because you're actually behaving as if they exist, even though you don't believe in God. So even an atheist does do this. They appeal to some kind of a right and wrong, but not just what they think, but they think everybody else should follow. So they're kind of saying it's actually a set of rules for all of us. It's not just I have my right and wrong and you have your right and wrong. So I guess my point there is that even atheists sort of look at morality this way, or they behave this way oftentimes. Okay, so that's morality. Any questions on that or comments? But just keep your comments short if you have one. Move on to what is prophecy. And then we'll look at bringing them together. So, all right, what is prophecy? Now, in the meeting, somebody gave the reference for prophecy, this quote, 2SM 102.1. And it's prophecy was seen to be a figurative delineation of events leading down to the close of this Earth's history. So it doesn't sound like morality yet. What's delineation? Anybody? Well, maybe we start with this one. What does figuratively mean? Figurative?
Symbolic.
Wonderful. Okay, symbolic. And delineation?
That's placed out on a line.
Okay, wonderful. On a line. Okay. So it looks a bit like this. We have a line and we've got events. And we also use, and if we did our own line, our own reform line, at the different waymarks, we also use line upon line, you know, along the way as well. So we move along the line, we're recognizing events, and we're using line upon line methodology. And that takes us to the end, it says in the quote. Oops. So when it comes to prophecy, there's a few things that it isn't. What is it not? Okay, one of the things it's not is it's not feelings. Prophecy is not what we feel that we understand when we look at it. It is also not our opinions. It's not opinions. It is not my beliefs, and I can have my beliefs and you can have your beliefs. That's not proper methodology, and that's not the definition of prophecy. It's not dreams and visions. It's not how we come to an understanding of prophecy either. And there's a Bible verse as well about personal interpretation. It's not personal interpretation. If we do that kind of thing, we break the rules of prophetic study. So hopefully we can see that, and hopefully we can see how that is quite similar to what we just said about morality. What we have got as for how we define prophecy is the application of a methodology. And what's methodology? It's using rules. A bit like what we said with the morality. It's not different rules for different people. It's a common set of rules that are external to, just external rules that everybody has to follow the same rules. It's a common standard of how we approach it. We all have to do it in the same way. We can judge others' work because we have this common set of rules. So we are required to, try to be careful to follow methodology, and then also can critique our peers' work, a bit like scientists do. Not in a mean spirit, of course, but, we can basically putting minds together can help us to see flaws and gaps. And what it leads to is a united understanding. I'll give 2 examples. I think these were given in that study I'm reviewing. I don't remember. I think so. Acts 27, for example, is something that everybody was able to unite around because it followed the rules and it was solid. And there'll be others than this, but I'll just give another example. The seven steps of salvation. We've got the agricultural model, different things like that. The reason why we can all rally around that is because it wasn't private interpretation, it was proven through methodology and rules. So in this sense, we can see that prophecy and morality are more or less the same, or they're following the same kind of definition. They're using rules. We follow rules in both cases, and sometimes it's hard to pull them apart, and they're certainly linked and work together as counterparts. For example, our prophetic studies take us to a better, I'd say, like an increase of knowledge on morality. And so if you have bad study techniques, you'll have wrong morality. For example, on the wrong side, might go with conspiracy theories as a bad practice, bad methodology, and would lead us to the wrong understanding of morality. And so we're breaking rules all over the place. Now we're breaking rules on our methodology, we're breaking rules on what's right and wrong. Next one, any comments or questions? In the class, people were saying things like, there is no difference. Prophecy and morality are the same thing. Because they both follow rules, they both follow a standard, and if you pull them apart and you make them into separate things, you break everything. And so hopefully now I'm hoping that by explaining it this way, it helps us all to understand why people would say that. If you pull them apart, you end up breaking everything. So they're the same, right? But they have different names, and their definition sort of can be seen a little bit differently as well. A bit like spouse A is actually not spouse B, right? There's some difference, different personalities that look different. The 4 and the 6, we can examine them, as different perspectives as well. So that's what we're going to do a little bit with this as well. So put my coin back here. I'll make this one prophecy. This one around it. All right, so don't get me wrong here, but I'll put the 4 over here and I'll put the 6 over here. Does anybody want to have a go at sort of explaining why I've kind of associated the 6 with this one, why I've associated the 4 with that one? You have any thoughts on that?
It's a bit like the example you gave of divinity and humanity.
Yeah.
So it's like each one of those examples could probably be laid out in a similar way.
Yep.
And they're connected, like you've said, so you can't really have one without the other. So
Yep. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Interaction with God, interaction with people.
Yep. I'll put the word love, so it's easier to write the word smaller. I'll put love God and love people. Is that okay, Brendan?
Sure.
Right, the interaction. Just going to think I could squeeze it in. Okay, so a focus here when we were looking at, especially in that earlier part of our line, thinking about the Sabbath Sunday test, focusing on making sure we love God correctly, follow those rules, in order to make God happy. And that was kind of like, I guess, associated with our understanding of our role as the movement. What are we here for? What are we here to do? So essentially what we were expecting and are expecting is that we have a message for the world. So when we're thinking about this sort of prophetic view, okay, let's just go back in time to our old mindset. We understand about Sabbath. We understand that, and it's now for us to understand basically the events, and we'll understand the timing, and we'll understand sort of a bit more about external events. And we're looking at all of this as though we're above it, and we're going to give a message to the world. So it's kind of, when we have this mindset, we're looking at prophecy because we are, maybe I'll ask you before I draw it up. We've got the, you know how we combine the agricultural model with the 7 steps of salvation and also the parable of the wheat and tares, and they're all lined up together. We have been taught that, say, in the parable of the wheat and tares, we as people in the movement play 2 roles in that story, kind of have to juggle the fact that we are doing 2 different things at once. Can somebody help me with that one? Explain or mention what that is? People are not sure, or you can put it in the chat. Let me check the chat. I've missed something. Sorry, Taylor, I missed your comment before about relationships. Lost the context on that. All right. Nobody knows what I'm talking about. So parable of the wheat and tares. Let's just start with that one. Who are we in that story? Where do you see us?
The wheat.
Okay, the wheat. So we're, let's say, plants. Pick a generic word. Okay. And here's the wheat. So I'm going to put that over this side. This is when we are touching the earth. So here's the earth here. And we are touching the earth. And this is us. Okay. But there's another aspect to that story. It really comes, you've got Who else is in that story?
Farmers.
Farmers, yeah. Anybody else? There's a farmer.
The reapers.
Reapers, yes.
Servants.
And
The servant.
yeah. Servants, great. Now that's that story, but I'm going to now shift to the other story which we overlay on top of that, and that is the angels. So do people remember that we've got at 9/11 the angels as well that are lining up with servants, as far as I think I understand that. So we can put ourselves in this story as maybe servants, but I'm going to use the words as the terminology that Elder Punda used anyway in the study, that in this time period we are also the angels. And if that's the case, you can say that it's above the earth. Okay? And the angels have a job to do. The angels have a job to give the message, to give the loud cry message. They're above the earth, so they're not touching the earth. They're looking basically from this bird's eye view, looking down and looking at world events, seeing all the things that are happening, interpreting prophecy using methodology, and then being able to give a message to the world. And back in the earlier days, we thought that message was to, keep Sabbath, not keep Sunday, and maybe a bit more comprehensive than that. Okay, so that's the prophetic side of things, where the angel's giving a message. Or on this side, we are the plants and we're touching the earth. So basically what would happen is that I'll put before here, when it kind of changes. And this comes from Ellen White explaining, I think, that even in the Great Controversy model, when the Sunday law comes, it affects God's people. It hurts, it's difficult, it affects your daily life as well. But before 2014, which is a Sunday law, or I'll put before National Sunday law, it's time of preparation. At preparation, we were, especially before 2014, but I don't think we've stopped this. It's not like we've stopped being students of prophecy. And I think that we need to, a bit like the 4 and the 6, we don't throw it away. We have to hold on to this as well. So we're students of prophecy. And we're a movement created by prophecy. And it's about prophecy. So we are a prophetic movement in that we self-identify. We arrived basically on time. Maybe we've been predicted as something that exists. So we are prophetic, a fulfillment of prophecy, but we also revolve around prophecy, speak about prophecy, teach prophecy, and study it. We were on time, and we have a message about time. And it's about preparing to give the loud cry. And who do we give the loud cry to? Us. Okay. That's the role of angels. They're not on the earth. They're giving a message to the earth. So it was easy to associate that, especially with the Sabbath Sunday. But even now, we haven't thrown that away, but we also have the 6. So, the message can be about all of that. But that's the lens that we look through when we're angels. So we are angels. We play 2 roles in current day right now. We are doing both things. Another word, actually, I'll put is, I think he does say something like actors or participants. And I think the word over here was observers. And we were instructed to, we can't just be one or the other. We have to be both. So you could even put us here in the middle. We are actors, we are participants in the great controversy, but we are also observers, and we can't throw this away just because we've shifted sort of our focus over here. We have to hold on to this, and that's one of the core themes from this presentation. Some of us maybe have forgotten to hold on to this, and we've shifted over here, and there's some risks with forgetting about that side, so we'll discuss that. So after 2014, or we can put National Sunday Law because it works basically on both lines. Essentially what happens is now it's the test arrives and we're now living it out. It's affecting us. It creates struggles, and what we do is kind of being examined. And then we have, I've mentioned the Sunday Law from Great Controversy. I'll put it there anyway. I mentioned it earlier. Great Controversy model talks about post-Sunday Law experience. And we are required, our job is to be righteous ourselves, because we're the plants. So we're getting harvested. It's about us, right? So two different sides of the same coin though. So hopefully that's clear. Did anybody have any questions on that or comments? Okay, so okay, I've looked at different aspects of this, but we've got to remember that it's all one. So we analyze different things, but we've got to remember it's all connected. For example, prophecy gave us the increase of knowledge on this. Okay, so it's prophecy that gave us that. We're the plants, but we're still angels. So it's messy now. And we were told, not to throw away the four. It's important not put rid of the four. So it's not that simplistic. We've got to hold on to the four. Our increase of knowledge is related to the prophetic message. That's how we arrived here, with the clarity on that. Especially dispensationally, because I guess it's always been the message of Christianity, of the everlasting gospel, to love people and love God. That's not new, but understanding how that looks and the depths of sin and understanding what we're required to do today comes through that dispensational view as well. This one here, it's still a moral concept. We can't just say the four is not moral and that it's only prophetic. So hopefully we can see it's just, sometimes we simplify things so we can study them, but they're not that simple. Right. Next. We'll do a bit more of this contrasting. Oh, so juggling two perspectives of who we are. We didn't need to report that off, but anyway, I'll just write the word angel here. I'll draw a picture. And plant. Some more differences. This one here, I'll start with, I don't know if I should start with this one. Let's start with this one. This one says to us that I'll start with this one is that we are special. Prophetically speaking, we're a prophetic movement. We've been called by God. We've been given an important job to do, give the loud cry. Basically, we've been called into this special role we have a partnership with God, all of that means we're special. So we're set apart. Just put us that we're set apart. And we give the loud cry. But what are we going to say on this side? This side, we're not special. Okay. Just because we're God's people doesn't give us special privileges. We've been learning through our lessons on prayer as well, that we don't get special favors over other people. God blesses everyone. God provides for the righteous and the unrighteous, everybody. God shows no partiality. Also, in human sense, we don't have, or we don't want or seek or think it would be right to have special laws created just for us. We understand that laws should be promoting equality between all people, even people that we disagree with or that don't have the same beliefs as us. So there's no privileges here.
Which is sort of
And-
tied up with nationalism when you think about it.
Okay, can you elaborate a little?
Oh, when you have I guess when you expect what am I saying? A preferential treatment, you are therefore that group that has the preferential treatment is above other groups of people.
Yep. Yeah, that's right. So we believe in equality. Yeah, people on the same level. Okay, so whether we're talking about like you mentioned, the nationalism, all of those things then are like a stepped view. And we know that to be wrong. I'll put nationalism there. And I guess when you say nationalism, you're talking about some people within the nation having more rights than others, or are you speaking, maybe it's all of them, one nation being above another nation?
That's scalable, I think.
It's the principle, right? And you can take it to the family who's, yeah.
Sorry,
I was sorry. Whoever.
No, you go, Marie. You're fine.
Yeah. When Brendan said that about nationalism, I was thinking that he would be saying we are special, would come under nationalism.
It sounds, yes, which is why we have to not fall into this, because people who, and this happens with many religious groups, maybe you don't even have to be religious, we can call it cultural. And Elder Paminda gave a talk about, I think it's even called We Are Not Special, something like that. It's very easy for people, everybody who thinks they're God's people or the prototype or whatever, they think that they're special. And that breaks human rights, understanding of human rights. So we were taught then, to us in the movement, let's not think we're special here. We've got to remember we're not special, okay? But we can't throw this away in a sense, because we are in a different, because we're playing two roles. So, but we don't live on earth this way. This is a prophetic view, not the moral view.
Can I just clarify a little on Brendan's point, and probably further to Marie's comment as well? Because when I'm looking at nationalism versus globalism, I would see nationalism as people thinking they are special, in the sense that they're above others, whereas globalism in its proper sense is really seeing everybody as being the same and deserving of the same. Yeah, is that what Brendan was referring to, or have I misunderstood? Because I think Marie was trying to point that out too, I think, if I understood Marie properly as well. Anyway, is that
I
right?
can't tell you what they thought. But yeah, maybe I'll give Brendan a brief moment to respond quickly, and then we'll move on. We can keep discussing after.
I didn't mean to distract from where you're going and what you're doing. I think you've sort of got to get, even though it's the same coin, you've still got to, because you're on Earth on that side.
Yeah.
You got to be careful on that side.
Yeah. That's right.
Does that clear it up enough?
I think it does. Thank you.
All right.
I think if you think you're special, we're going back to your rule book. You have a rule book of your own.
Let's hold that conversation till the end, if that's okay. I think it'll take a while to
all
discuss, but I
good.
don't think so. Yeah. A different rule book, I don't think so. But I think this is just saying that not special rules, especially we're not special. We don't have different rules. There's one set of rules for everybody. Even God follows the same rules as us. But we are set apart. So when you're set apart as holy, that is a special item. So an item that's been set apart as holy is a special item. So there is an aspect to this which we are special, but we've got it when we live our life in terms of our morality. We don't live like we're special. That's a prophetic view, and this is our moral view. So let's just leave it at that. So other things as well. So we learned about I'll put here that the movement on this side, on the prophetic side, is not sanctioning people, members over doctrine. Okay, so there's no force. You're not forced to speak on any particular thing. You're not forced to avoid anything particular. You're not punished if you teach something that's a mistake or incorrect. That's when it comes to doctrine. On this prophetic side, we are scientists. We are above everything, looking down, studying and discussing and working on these things together. So it's treated a little bit differently. But on the moral side, the movement does sanction for moral crimes. There was a different study where, I don't know what the example was. Was it about stealing or something like that? These kind of moral crimes, then the movement will basically use force on you. Use the word force, sort of, don't take that the wrong way, but there will be that intervention. Okay, the job for the angel is to tell the world about the prophetic message, essentially. Tell the world to honor God, worship God, be good, however we want to phrase that. There is a message for the world. That's a different job to the plan. What's a job for a plan? The plant meant to do in the literal?
Grow. Bear fruit.
Grow. Yep.
Absorb the waters.
Yep. Drink the rain. Yep. So different jobs, but this is us, right? So we're doing both. Got to grow, got to drink the rain, but we're also giving a message. We're playing two roles. And really key here is to understand we have to be separate, right? So let's put here that we move from the that was said earlier, we moved from the right wing to the left wing. Okay, so we have to actually move. We made changes from the right wing to the left wing. We have to be separate, be ye separate. Got to be separate from that worldly thinking, patriarchy, culture. We've got to be separate from all of that. So we see ourselves as left wing, and now we see the right wing as others. They're not us, right? So there's us and them. And so this us and them is something that we see people in the movement expressing, right? Like, oh, those terrible pro-Trump people, or those terrible right-wingers, or those terrible sexist da-da-da, or the horrible manosphere, you know, the awful people, we don't want to be like that. They're so bad. And when you think that way, you go, okay, well, they're so bad and we are so good. So the risk is I think we have to be separate. We have to identify who we are and where we are. But it creates an us versus them mentality, right? In a way it's required, but problem is if we only do this and we forget about this, there's a problem that happens. Because what happens to an angel that thinks this way? So let's say this angel goes, oh my goodness, those horrible right-wingers,
Bias,
they're awful. Yeah, that's right. So
bias, and you lose the rules.
bias, yeah. So the risk of lose the rules, yes, that's right. Because how do we study prophecy or world events if we're really like focused, get that whole let's just say we consume a lot of, say, opinion pieces or news articles from the left wing. It's going to drive us into a certain type of thinking where we see the others as enemies, okay? But what happens to an angel that sees, who's the angel supposed to be preaching to? Who are they telling to be righteous? Okay. Are they telling the good people? They've got to give the message to the bad people, right? To let's just say to the lost. Go ahead, Brendan, sorry.
Oh, it's a warning message. Final warning.
A warning message. Yeah, that's right. But if we fall into this, I don't know if I can call it a ditch, but if we swing too far this way and lose sight of this, we're actually here to give a message to these them people. Okay, to the them. And to give a message to them, you actually have to go near to them to talk to them. Okay, so come close to them, these people that we think are so sexist and horrible, patriarchal, whatever word you want to put in there. We have to come close to them and actually to love them. Okay, and then you've got to give them the message. If we think we're righteous and they're evil and that's the end of story, we're losing sight of our mission. Also, if we're right wing moving to left wing, what does that imply? That implies that we're here, right? We're people on the earth and we're just different type of people. But this angel is neither left wing or right wing. It's not either. What kingdom is the angel from? The angel is not even from earth, so it's not left wing or right wing. It's from heaven. It's an ambassador. Okay, so we've got to see ourselves, step back a bit, right? And just remember that we're actually from heaven and we've been given a job to do by God to love and help all these people. So we don't want to demonize them in a way, because we want to understand them. And also, like Brendan mentioned, the rules, we can get our prophecy influenced by this so that we start interpreting prophecy through this lens, and it means we're not looking at things objectively. We're very biased. So Elder Paminda taught during this study is that when we teach, make presentations, when we participate in prayer meeting and present articles, if we share news articles with our friends, or if we comment on them, we've got to not use this us versus them mentality. We should be more objective and sort of imagine ourselves as more the observers when we're doing our prophetic studies and prophetic teaching. Can't just only do this because we're required to live a certain way. So we can't throw out either of these. We've got to juggle them. 2 examples on some dangers here, just practical examples. We only get this morality from the rules and methodology. And with the Second Amendment, you could see the methodology that was used took us to a place where people didn't expect it to go, because left-wing media probably pushes a certain narrative on that. So to study the Second Amendment, we had to do it over here and be more objective and use methodology. Essentially, that one was about scale. If a nation can defend itself, then a person can defend themselves. And so you scale that up and down. You don't have different rules for different scales. So methodology would show you self-defense is appropriate for everyone. And marriage equality is another one, maybe as an example, that we didn't just get our, say, gay marriage message through feelings or sort of even from the world. It was through prophetic methodology that brought us there. And so Elder Tess and Elder Paminda took us through that, the steps to basically show through methodology and through prophecy that is the moral way to go. All right, so we finished. Just to conclude or sum up, we looked at some examples of things that we must not separate. We put them on the board, all different brainstorming. We looked at the 2 different definitions of morality and how one of them is easier to use or more correct to use than the other one because it follows rules. Then we could see that when we do it that way, we can see the prophecy and morality are both very similar or both the same and closely intertwined. They work as counterparts. So prophecy is morality, morality is prophecy. But then we put them apart and examined them separately as well and saw how the different perspectives and their work as counterparts. So counterparts usually work together. They might look a bit different. And then we could see what this means for us, especially in practical terms. It's a warning for us to watch ourselves, that we don't just do this part and think we're left wing and forget about our role as angels and being ambassadors from heaven. And then studying our prophecy through this moral lens is not the way we were supposed to do it. Last, I'll just close with the verse from 1 Corinthians 13, 1-2. It shows that you can have all the prophecy you like, but if it's not connected to love, it's really not going to work. So though I speak with the tongues of people and angels, but I have no charity or love, I become like a sounding brass or a tinkling cymbal. And though I have the gift of prophecy and I understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and though I have all faith so that I could remove mountains and have not charity, I am nothing. So those 2 concepts need to be tied together and kept together. And so, yeah, if our test moral or prophetic? Is the prophetic message moral or prophetic? Then hopefully we can see that it's all one thing. We can't separate it. Let's close in prayer. Thank you for the various ways that we have come to where we are today. We understand that we have been up to in the time of the Sunday law, and the way we live matters and the way we study matters. May we not be biased or make mistakes. May we not forget to hold on to either side of this model, but to remember that it's all integrated and it all works together. And thank you for these things and for your love. In Jesus' name, amen.